Valentine, and she's Geraldine Valentine. And that's Mrs. Hazel Lampkins, who's sitting next to my sister, whose son, Gregory Cooper, was shot 66 times by 7 police officers. Just one more minute. I also ask that the fathers get as involved as the mothers in keeping the struggle going. In conclusion, I could be every son's mother who happens to look like me. Let's vow today to do everything in our power to save our sons and to end racial profiling. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank Amnesty International for this report. Threat and Humiliation. This is their report on racial profiling, which has just been released today. I encourage you to take copies of it and read it, and use this in your own struggles, whatever they may be, because there's an abundance of evidence of the continued persistence of racism in this society. And this report can be ammunition for you in whatever kind of struggle you engage in. I wanted to begin with an email message I received from a former student just yesterday concerning the life and death of Prince Jones, a student at Howard University where I teach, a student that I had actually, and that many of the Howard University students loved very much. Maisha Perkins writes, I was taking a quiet moment this Friday evening to collect my thoughts and reflect on those that had a significant effect on my life. That journey led me to thinking about Prince. And how after 4 years, I am still choked up, and I guess she's not the only one, over the fact that he was taken so brutally and mercilessly from us. Although I only knew him casually, he was very much a part of my Howard University experience. From my first shuttle ride to Meridian, which is when I met Prince, until the last time I ran into him before graduating. A towering, endless grin and a black cowboy hat is the way he lives in my mind. Crossing paths was always a pleasure, and I considered a privilege being able to have known him while I was there. So 4 Septembers have passed, and I found in my Google research that the case was closed due to insufficient something or another, which was a blow to my already melancholy spirit. I hope that this isn't the last in this case. Insufficient something or other. That's the story here in Prince George's County. We formed the People's Coalition for Police Accountability under the able leadership of Redmond Barnes and many others. Redmond is here, there he is, yeah. And the people who formed the People's Coalition came from a diverse set of backgrounds. Most of us have been involved in fights around police brutality for many, many years, even going back as far as the Terrence Johnson case almost 30 years ago. Our goal has been in the People's Coalition to end police brutality in the county through enhanced accountability. In 2000, when we were formed, there was frequent killings with impunity, limited access to information, and an arrogance and racism that transcended the bounds of humanity in the Prince George's Police Department. Our coalition has followed many paths in its efforts to bring about police accountability, always focusing on grassroots organizing and mobilizing as the real power that can be brought to bear in such cases. Well, we've met with Police Chief John Farrell and Gerald Wilson. Melvin High, the current police chief, has thus far declined to meet with us. Perhaps that will change. The People's Coalition has held community forums many times and mobilizations. It has participated in every available public hearing on these matters and some that weren't quite so public. It has engaged the U.S. Department of Justice and provided scores of testimonials during the summer of 2001 from victims of police brutality in the county. In fact, it was this mobilization of public awareness and the cases that we were able to bring to the Justice Department that played a major role in inducing them to begin investigating the police department in this county. The People's Coalition has also had a legislative strategy of mobilizing people to abolish LIBOR, the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights, which allows legally police to evade accountability. And we've done the lobbying and the protesting and so on in Annapolis to try to bring about those reforms. We've even supported very, very minor reform proposals for LIBOR with the outlook that at least a small step would work, but even those small steps have been consistently rejected by the state government. The People's Coalition has also taken to the streets frequently to demand accountability and justice in many specific cases, including those of such victims and some survivors as those of Artie Elliott III, Prince Jones, Gary Hopkins, Jose Maria Melgar, Caesar Allen, Elmer Newton, Gregory Cooper, and Desmond Ray. We like to think in the coalition, and maybe we're kidding ourselves, but we like to think that our mobilization and resistance has to some modest degree reduced the frequency of the police murdering young African American men. In our struggles, we have heard it all. We've been assured by police chiefs, state's attorneys, legislators, county executives that the police will certainly be accountable and any malfeasance on their part will be prosecuted and punished. They promised that officers who abuse county residents will be disciplined and fired, that there will be better training, more use of non-lethal means to subdue suspects, greater oversight. The county has been forced, in part through these efforts, to enter into this memorandum of agreement and a consent decree with the U.S. Department of Justice, in essence conceding that the county's police force is out of control and needs an outside tamer. And yet even these documents are inadequate. There is a provision in the memorandum of agreement that allows the independent monitor to reopen cases that it deems that have been closed, such as that of Prince Jones or of Artie Elliott and many others, if it believes that there was some cover-up involved or something that wasn't completely done right. And so we intend to use this provision to push very hard on the independent monitor to reopen these cases. However, we are not optimistic. The independent monitor was chosen without any community input deliberately. It was an agreement between strictly the U.S. Department of Justice and the Prince George's Police Department. And there was no provision for community input of any kind, not even some kind of official committee, let alone a citizens group like ours. Well, the reason I'm particularly pessimistic about the prospects for this independent monitor is that, ironically, the person that these two law enforcement agencies decided they would pick to monitor the police department is none other than Eduardo Gonzalez, who was the head of the U.S. Marshals that played the role in the case of Matt Fogg. In fact, Eduardo Gonzalez is as culpable as any police officer in the lack of accountability and the racist profiling. I think had there been some community input, this might have been pointed out to them. They might still have gone ahead and done it. After all, they do control things, at least for a while. So I think that we do want to press forward on whatever openings we have, but I think we should be clear and objective about what is likely to happen. We are going to have to continue to build our grassroots approach in order to bring pressure to bear on the system. All of these things have happened, all of these promises have been made, and yet our information from the street is that the police remain as abusive, arrogant, and racist as before. There has been no change. There has been fewer murders in the last year, but at the same time, no fundamental change has occurred as we go in the grassroots process. Young men, young black men continue to be targeted automatically as perps. We want to say loud and clear that the police do harass, shoot, and kill innocent people. I know we have a lot of crime in this county. We just hit the 100 mark in homicides, a terrible thing. However, many of the individuals who are targeted and abused by these police are not those criminals. In fact, they are the innocent ones. And yet, because there is a fair amount of crime in the county, a lot of residents, maybe some of you, when you read the article about somebody being killed by the police, say, well, he probably did something. Probably did something. Maybe he shouldn't have been killed, but he probably did something more than just being intoxicated. Well, the truth is not that. The truth is the police have killed with impunity and have killed innocent people. They are criminals and should be prosecuted and punished. Prince Jones was an outstanding case of this. Followed through 3 jurisdictions by Carlton Jones, certainly not a relative, and then shot 16 times in the back. No weapon, of course. None of these folks have weapons, well, not none, I shouldn't exaggerate. But of the 122 people who were shot by the police in this county between 1990 and 2000, 47 of them were killed. Over 60% did not have any weapon, all right? That tells you something. That tells you something. And then there's been another 10 who have been killed since the year 2000, and none of them have been held accountable either. And so we have a situation where there's only been one police officer in the county who has been actually convicted, and at least we understand is supposed to be in jail. Stephanie Moore, who didn't even kill anybody, I mean, she did an egregious crime, but Stephanie Moore was convicted of a violation of civil rights in a federal court and given a 10-year sentence in a federal penitentiary. We'll see how long she serves, but the point is, that's one. And we have many, many more. When something as detrimental as this continues, despite promises of reform, we are led to believe that the problem is structural and systemic. There is a blue wall of silence in which officers refuse to come forward. There is a culture of brutality that is constantly reinforced by the impunity experienced by these officers. What's behind this? Some argue that it's ingrained racist thinking, continually reinforced by the popular culture and media, which causes this process to continue on and on. Others, like myself, argue that the system of capitalism in its pursuit of profits has kept black people at the bottom of society's opportunities, using their labor as cheaply as possible and discarding it whenever appropriate, and jailing and harassing black men and women to keep them in line. Why else is black unemployment 2.5 times that of white? Why is the incarceration rate for African American males the highest rate for any group in the entire world? Is this systemic analysis correct? Perhaps. And to address this, obviously we have a much broader fight. But in the meantime, as we address the broader issues in society, we should bear in mind that we are moving increasingly towards a police state with the police having no constraints whatsoever. J. Edgar Hoover said, "Justice is incidental to law and order." Judge John Ashcroft has certainly trumped him on that. In fact, I would say that we are at the orange alert level for a police state. As we understand these imperatives for broad systemic change, we stand before you today, though, to urge your engagement in the two fights, the two struggles that we are currently engaged in as the People's Coalition, and we want you to join us. We are not a policy organization, we are a grassroots mobilizing organization. We have two campaigns, and I have the literature out on the table about them. One is to abolish LIBOR through a legislative agenda and demonstrations and actions in Annapolis. And the second is to insist that Charles Ramseur be fired from the police department. He's already been exonerated by the court because Glenn Ivey, the state's attorney, was unable to get the grand jury to find a true bill of indictment against him. Now, we all know that we all watch Law and Order, right? We know that any state's attorney can get an indictment against a ham sandwich, right? So for him not to be able to get an indictment against the guy who shot Desmond Ray in the back, paralyzing him for life, again, no weapon, no nothing, just another black man shot and paralyzed for life. Yeah, that's all they think about. Ramseur, who's also killed before and will probably continue to kill again, we demand that he be fired immediately, and we understand that there's some thought about doing that in the police department. So we hope that our